Anyway, we do want to welcome you all, and this is our third get together as a regional group of storytellers. Um, Back before COVID, quite often people would come down from Canada, or our people would go up to Canada, and or people would get together in Port Angeles at the Forest Storytelling Festival, and we oftentimes welcomed storytellers from different parts of our region. And we've got a number of guilds that are active. A few of them kind of bit the dust during COVID, but some of them are kind of reemerging a little bit. I'm still hoping that Bellingham will respond sometime. I did send invitations to Bellingham. I haven't heard anything from them. I check their webpage periodically to see if they've got something happening, and they've had a couple events, so there's hope for them. Um, but we kind of stretch all the way from Portland up to Vancouver, Canada, both the island and the city. And we also, mostly along the I-5 corridor and in Washington, we do have a few people over on the east side of the Cascades, including one member of our board who runs a Liars storytelling swap on the fourth Monday of the month on Zoom. Now, as you all know, when that nasty thing called COVID came around, it basically pushed us all out into Zoom to get together, and we made a lot of friends. It's just really exciting. When I went down to the National Storytelling Networks conference 2 years ago, it was just amazing. My wife said to me when I got there, "Are you going to know anybody here?" I walked in the door and lots of people knew me, and they were from all over the country, but it was because we got together on Zoom. So we've had the opportunities to get together on Zoom for the last few years, and gradually now we're starting to creep out. What happened to my spotlight? Well, it's popping out for some reason. Anyway, um, gradually we've started to move out into live storytelling again. I've kind of been watching the different guilds and the things that are happening. There's a move into new venues. There's a looking for venues going on. But basically, our programs are similar than they used to be before. There are swaps. There are programs with featured tellers. There are get-togethers where few people are featured and other people just share. And I'm hoping we'll get to more and more live storytelling so that I don't have to worry about my face catching up with my voice. But anyway, for tonight, we're just going to get reacquainted with a few of others. And unfortunately, some of the folks that I would love to have seen here tonight are involved in other things. Mm-hmm. Fanning the Embers is taking place down in the South Sound Story Guild areas, and a lot of people from, I think the story people in Clallam County might be down there too. I don't know what's happening for sure with the Fireside Tellers. They're down in Olympia. They're pretty close. They do most of their stuff in Puyallup. And also, I know Erran's people, a lot of them are attending a story swap tonight. But we're glad you're here, and we're going to have a variety of tellers from different areas in our region and get reacquainted a little bit. Each one of them is going to share a little bit about what their guild is up to, what kind of programs they're anticipating, and some exciting news along the way. And we're going to start out with Russell Hirsch, who's up there in Vancouver, BC, and he's going to introduce our program with a land acknowledgement, pretty much off the cuff, but I look forward to that. And then he's going to tell a little bit about what's happening in the Vancouver area, and then he's going to share a story with us. So, Russell, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Barry. Everybody can hear me okay?
Spotlight. There we go.
Fantastic. Well, it's wonderful to be here. It's always exciting to gather, whether it's in person or virtually. We're really grateful for all the connections that events like these form. And we're, of course, very grateful that so many of our guilds, both our groups here in Vancouver, BC, and the Seattle groups, operate on the traditional and ancestral territories of primarily the Coast Salish First Nations, who are the original storytellers on these lands before the United States, before Canada, before that very straight line across the 49th parallel. Their cultures and stories were here. So I am indeed in Vancouver, British Columbia, where we have two main storytelling groups. One is the Vancouver Tellers. So for Vancouver Tellers, we operate generally from October to May, and we've got two main events each month. One is an in-person concert, and the other is a Zoom concert. So our in-person gatherings are the third Sunday evening of each month. We typically have three featured tellers, followed by a story circle, where anyone can share a short story, poem, joke, anecdote, witticism, whatever comes to mind. And our Zoom evenings are the last Sunday of each month. So we actually have one coming up 2 days from now. And those, like tonight's rendezvous, tend to feature five main tellers. If you are interested in info about any of those events, in person or online, feel free to contact us, vancouvertellers@gmail.com. And we also want to highlight our sister organization, the North Shore Storytellers, who operate just outside of Vancouver,
Did you
BC
find the
itself,
word?
in West Vancouver. And the North Shore Storytellers have a wonderful event on the first Sunday afternoon of each month. That's also an in-person event. It's three featured tellers and again a story circle afterwards. So, on behalf of Vancouver Tellers and the North Shore Storytellers, it's my pleasure to be here. And as one of the virtually visiting Canadians, I'm going to share a French Canadian folk tale with you this evening. This is one of my favorite folk tales, and it's called A Surprise in the Oven. So long, long ago in Quebec, there lived a woman named Tante Odette, Auntie Odette, in a little house with her gray cat, Chouchou. Well, everybody in the region loved Tante Odette because Tante Odette was a fantastic baker. Oh, the breads she baked were just délicieux. Well, one spring morning, Tante Odette woke up early. She was excited because her nephew Francois was coming to visit. She loved that little boy more than anything, and it had been almost a year since he'd last come. So she was going to bake a special loaf of blueberry bread just for him. She went outside. You see, this was olden times. She didn't have an electric oven. She didn't have a gas oven. She had a great big wood-fired oven that was too big for her house. It was outside in the yard. But as she got close to the oven, alas, she noticed that the door was partway open. Oh, she must have forgot to close it all the way the night before. And it had been a windy night. Dust would have blown in overnight and leaves. Ugh, she'd have to clean it out right away if there was any hope of baking the blueberry bread in time for Francois's arrival. Well, she opened the oven door all the way and then clanged it shut again. There was dust in that oven. There were leaves in the oven, but there was something else in the oven too. And when Tante Odette saw what it was, she tore at her hair. She began running around in circles saying, "What will I do? What will I do?" Well, when she finally calmed down, caught her breath, she thought, okay, I have a big problem. But when you have a big problem, two heads are better than one. So she decided, go on down the road to the neighboring house where her brother Albert lived. Albert was also up early. He was out feeding the chickens. Albert, Albert, I've got a big problem. Bon matin, ma soeur. What is your problem? Albert, there's a skunk in my oven. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Oh, a skunk in the oven. Oh, I bet you always tell such stories. No, c'est vrai, it's true. Are you sure? Maybe it's just your cat, Chouchou. Does Chouchou have black fur? Does Shoo Shoo have a big white stripe down his back? No, no. Come back to my house. We will figure out what to do. Okay, but first I must finish with the chickens. Tante Odette agreed, and she considered going back to her house right away, but then she thought, well, if 2 heads are better than 1, then 3 heads are probably better than 2. So she continued further on down the road to the next house, where another of her brothers, Bernard, lived. He was up early too. Bernard, he was pulling weeds out of the vegetable patch. Bernard, Bernard, I've got a big problem. Bon matin, ma soeur. What is your problem? Bernard, there's a skunk in my oven. Ooh, a skunk in the oven? Oh, that's a good one. You always tell such stories. No, c'est vrai, it's true. Are you sure? Maybe, you just put an old fur coat in there to burn with your garbage. Bernard, what are you talking about? Do I look like the sort of person who would burn a fur coat? Who would put garbage in the same oven where I make my delicious blueberry bread? No, no. Come back to my house. We will figure out what to do. Okay, okay. But I have to finish with the garden. Tante Odette agreed. And she was going to go back home, but then she figured, well, 2 heads are better than 1, and 3 heads are better than 2. 4 heads were probably better than 3, so she carried on to the final house along the road, which is where her oldest brother, Christophe, lived. He was up early pulling water from the well. Christophe, Christophe, I've got a big problem. Bon matin, ma soeur. What is your problem? Christophe, there's a skunk in my oven. Oh, oh, a skunk in the oven. Oh, you'll have to get up earlier than this to fool old Christophe Odette. You tell such stories. No, c'est vrai, it's true. Are you sure it was not just a shadow? You know, the angle of the sun this time of morning, it can play tricks on the mind. Well, does a shadow have beady black eyes and sharp little teeth and a big bushy tail? No, no. Come back to my house. We'll figure out what to do. Okay, but first I must finish with the water from the well. Well, Tante Odette went over. She helped him pull up the pail, and when they had finished the chore, they both headed back to her house. The other brothers, Albert and Bernard, were already there, and so were quite a few other locals who'd heard about the commotion and come to watch. You see, a skunk in one's own oven is a big problem, but a skunk in somebody else's oven is a kind of amusing distraction. So quite a crowd had gathered. Well, the first brother, Albert, was standing by the oven. He said, You know, Odette, I think you are still playing a joke. Let's take a look. And he opened the oven door a bit. Ah! There is a skunk in the oven. Oh, said Bernard, you two are in cahoots. I will take a look. And he opened up that door a bit. Ah! There is a skunk in the oven. And of course, Christophe had to take a turn as well. Now, none of you ever had good eyesight like Christophe. I will see. Oh, there is a skunk in the oven. Oui, merci, mes frères. Thank you, said Tante Odette. That's very helpful that you are telling me what I already know and had already told you. The question is not, is there a skunk in the oven? It is, how will we get the skunk out of the oven? Well, everyone thought for a few moments. And then Albert said, I will go home. I will get my gun. That will be the end of that. No, Albert. Don't want to kill the skunk. I just want it out of the oven. Besides, think of the mess you would make. Bernard stepped forward. Yeah, Albert, quelle idée. I have a better plan. I will go home. I will get my big dog. He will come. He will bark. He will scare the skunk out of the oven. Oh, Bernard, think. What happens when a skunk gets scared? Nobody wanted that, especially not near the source of all the delicious bread. So Christophe came forward with his plan. What we will do is we will get some string. We will tie meat to the end of the string. We will dangle it outside the oven. The skunk will smell. And we will lure him into the forest. But remember, this was olden times. Meat was quite rare, quite valuable. Tante Odette said, Christophe, I have no meat. And even if I did, I would save it for my nephew Francois when he comes. But if you have some meat you would like to share, oh, no, I do not have any meat either. But I think Bernard has some. What? No, I have no meat either. And the brothers went round, and none of the other onlookers wanted to share any of their meat. They started to wander away, mumbling about fences that needed mending and cows that needed milking, until finally Tante Odette said, Stop, stop. And there were tears on her cheeks. She was really upset. She said, all I wanted was to get the skunk out of the oven so I could bake blueberry bread for Francois when he comes. I don't want him getting here on an empty stomach. Oh, but none of this is helping, and he'll be here any minute. And even as her brothers mumbled an apology, they heard the creak of wagon wheels. And then they saw their sister Hélène, who had moved to town many years before, and her son, Tante Odette's nephew, Francois. And when the wagon stopped, Francois jumped out and he ran over and he threw his arms around Tante Odette. But then he said, Tante Odette, what's wrong? Why are you crying? She had to explain all about the blueberry bread and how she hadn't made it because there was a skunk in the oven. And he didn't think she was telling stories. Little Francois believed her right away. He said, Tante Odette, do you think I could try to get the skunk out of the oven? She said, Okay, Francois, but be careful. I don't want you getting sprayed. And so Francois went over to the oven, and he opened it just a little, and he whispered something. And Tante Odette and her siblings all crowded around, and all the other people who'd started to leave, they came over, and they were trying to hear, but no one could quite make out what he said. And then Francois opened the oven door all the way, and everybody backed way up. And a moment later, they saw the skunk. But it wasn't the backside and upraised tail. It was the skunk's little snout and its little striped head. And it wriggled out of the oven onto the ground, and then it held its chin high, and it marched right past the people, who backed up even more. And it marched past the parked wagon and across the road, and it disappeared into the forest. Everyone, tout le monde, was amazed. Tante Odette said, Francois, you did it. But what did you do? What did you say to the skunk? Francois was a little embarrassed by all the attention from the adults. Eventually, he shrugged and said, Well, Tante Odette, I just told it that if it stayed in the oven much longer, it would start to smell like your delicious blueberry bread. And if it smelled as good as that, none of the other skunks would want to go near it ever again. That's the tale of how they got the surprise out of Tante Odette's oven. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was great, Russell.
Oh,
That's a
Russell,
great.
that was wonderful. Complete with the French accent. That
That's
was
a
very
really.
nice.
Thanks very much.
Leave it to the kids.
I just put in the chat a little bit of information about Russell, um, some of the things he's up to, and also his website address if you're interested in finding out more about him. Um, I will also include this information in the email I'll send out afterwards when I send out the link to the recording, so you'll have this information if you don't remember to save it. I just saw a hand raised, but I first of all ought to have Anne come on the scene here. And then I will disappear and bring up Trish. who is waving her hand for some reason.
All right.
There, no,
Oops.
the wrong one.
It's the wrong Trish. No.
There we go.
There's Trish. All righty. Well, it is my great good fortune to introduce to you all a person who is new to me this evening. This is Trish Anderson, who lives in the Portland, Oregon area. And unfortunately for Trish, she has lost some good neighbors in that Anne and Norm have moved to Chico, California. And Trish is, well, shall we say, she's a disciple of Norm. She has done not only illustrations for the book that Norm wrote called The Man Who Loved Dragons, but she has also learned a lot of storytelling tricks from Norm. So in her bio, Trish wrote that she loves to tell whimsical and surprising stories that scramble here and now with now and then, with a little once upon a time thrown in for good measure. Trish, we're glad to have you aboard. Please take us away to the land of story.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. And I guess thanks are in order for the Athalati people on whose lands I reside. So this story is, I'm supposed to say something about our group. Portland Storytellers group is, we are kind of down to an open mic every month on the third Tuesday. Should be the third Thursday, but it's the third Tuesday of every month down at the B-Side Records. And that's been a lot of fun. An open mic, it's virtual as well as live, which is very rewarding. In April, the Portland Storytellers Guild is going to be a part of the Fertile Ground performances. On April 11, we are having a performance of Nice and Grim. And this story is one of those. I'd also like to shout out to Sarah Stein, who will be performing Circus on the Streets. It's a separate performance, and she's got a couple of things noted in the Fertile Ground catalog. But here we go, Nice and Grim, Clever Gretel. Did you ever wonder what happened to Hansel and Gretel after all the hoopla died down and the story moved to page 12 of the newspaper? Well, you're in luck. I happen to know. After lots and lots and lots of family therapy, both those kids restarted their lives. Hansel shortened his name to Hans and went off and had adventures. Gretel was told she could marry anyone she wished, with the witch's treasure providing a handsome dowry. But Gretel did not want to marry. She wanted to go to culinary school, to be all she could be. In culinary school, it was a breeze for clever Gretel. But people didn't really warm to her very much. They didn't like her little stories about the saint who was cooked and eaten by an ogre, one limb at a time. And then there was a kerfuffle about her liberal use of the cooking wine. Apparently, people thought it should go in the dish and not in the cook. Well, her graduation day was viewed with great relief by everyone. At the graduation celebration luncheon, Gretel found herself sitting next to Minnie, a thin, sour-faced woman who seldom had anything nice to say about anything. Hey, Minnie, here we are, toasted to perfection, so to speak. No more studies, no more tests. Tomorrow, I think I'm just going to stare at the sky. How about you, Minnie? Said Minnie. Some of us have to work for our bread. Oh, come on, Minnie. Come on. Listen, let today just be. Celebrate this moment. Let tomorrow take care of tomorrow. And Gretel pulled out a flask of her homemade cordial and poured a generous amount into Minnie's cup, while Minnie was looking for a way to get out of the conversation. But Gretel's cordial actually made the punch taste very good. And after a couple of cups, Minnie was nattering on about how tomorrow she was going to go to work as a living cook in a gentleman's household. Well, the next day, Minnie had a serious case of the dwindles, no doubt brought on by Gretel's marvelous cordial. Gretel was very sympathetic, and she said, you know, I could let the employer know that you're indisposed and you'll be there this afternoon. And poor Minnie, she just couldn't argue with that logic. So Gretel went off with a name and an address. The employer, a tall, thin man named Carver, greeted Gretel at the door. You must be the new cook. Ah, that's wonderful. Come in. This way to the kitchen. I'm told that you know what to do there. That's very good because I like my food. And that kitchen, oh, Gretel hadn't seen such a wonderful place. She hadn't felt so happy since she was a starving little kid standing in front of an entire house made out of her favorite food, gingerbread. She would oil the cogs of her imagination with a swig of wine or a sip of ale or both. And then she'd get to work. Her kitchen hummed night and day, cranking out an endless line of dishes, silky puddings, crusty loaves of bread, crackling roasts, and an endless array of clever and delicious side dishes. One day, Mr. Carver came to the kitchen. Gretel, I'm having Mr. Guest over for dinner. Would you please put on 2 chickens and cook them in that way that you do? Gretel killed 2 chickens. She scalded, plucked, and prepped them, and as evening approached, she put them over the fire to roast. They were just turning beautiful golden brown, and everything, the side dishes were ready, the bread was fresh from the oven, and a jug of ale sat ready to hand. Mr. Carver, where is this Mr. Guest? If he doesn't get here soon, well, everything's ready, and it would be a shame and a sin not to eat these chickens at their juicy best. You're right, Gretel. I'll go fetch him myself. Mr. Carver was no sooner out the door Then Gretel ran over and banked the fire to spare the chickens. And then she went over and took a nice swig out of the jug of ale. And she thought, I wonder when he'll be back. And then she took another swig and went back to basting the chickens. Then she decided that maybe she needed to taste them. So she did, and it was delicious. But as she was basting and turning the spit, she noticed one of the wings was almost burnt. Now, Gretel had a horror of overcooked meat. So she sliced that wing off and ate it. And then she ran over to the window and looked to see if Mr. Carver and Mr. Guest were on their way. But the street was empty. So Gretel drained the jug of ale, thinking, that probably wasn't the best accompaniment to this chicken anyway. And then she went back to the first chicken and cut off the other wing and ate it too. She didn't want Mr. Carver to think that there was something missing. And after a couple more seconds of thinking, Gretel did the same to the second chicken. Well, things were at a pretty pass. Those chickens were ready to eat. But she wondered, were they cooked all the way through? She peeked out the window again, and still no sign of the two gentlemen. She thought, they probably went somewhere else to eat and weren't going to arrive there at all. So she proceeded to taste and taste and taste until that first chicken was nothing but bones. She looked sadly at the ale jug and realized that wine would be a better accompaniment to the chicken. So she opened a bottle and had a glass of wine, looked at the second chicken and said, well, what are you waiting for? That first chicken is lonely. And she soon sent it sliding down after the first. Just then, Mr. Carver came into the house. Gretel, get everything ready. Mr. Guest is right behind me. And he went into the dining room. Seeing everything was set, he took out his big carving knife and began to hone it. Just then, Mr. Guest tapped on the door and Gretel rushed to open it. Shh, be quiet. If Mr. Carver hears you, you'll be sorry. He invited you for dinner, but what he really wants is to cut off both of your ears. Listen, he's sharpening the knife for it right now. There was the unmistakable scrape of steel on steel. Mr. Guest looked horrified, and he clapped his hands to both ears and took to his heels. Then Gretel went quickly into Mr. Carver and said, what kind of guest did you invite? Why, Gretel, whatever do you mean? Well, that man, he just came in and he took both the chickens off the platter that I was bringing to you, and then he ran off with them. Well, that's a fine tune. He could have left me just one, so I can have something to eat. And then Mr. Carver ran off after his guest, yelling, "Stop! Just one! Just one!" and waving his big carving knife in the air. Mr. Guest imagined, I'm sure, that Mr. Carver meant to take just one of his ears. And so he ran all the faster so he could get home with both of his ears. That night, Gretel was full. And Mr. Carver had to eat soup. I don't know that he ever found out what happened that night, but last I heard, she was still feeding him.
Woo!
Oh, Trish, that was just great.
Thank you. Thank you.
I listened with both of my ears. I hope everybody else did as well. That was great. Oh,
Thank
boy.
you.
Well, you will have to come and tell for us again sometime. That's for sure.
It would be my pleasure.
Oh, yeah. And everybody, if you don't know, that background is something that Trish created with her own colored pencils, and it is so evocative of the part of the country where we all live. So cool. All righty. Well, once again, I have the pleasure of introducing a teller, and this time it's Erran Sharpe, who comes to us from Port Angeles, right, Erran? And representing the Clallam,
The story
people of Clallam County.
people of Clallam County. Thank you. Thank you. The brain sometimes gets a little stuck. Okay. I remember that Erran came to tell for us once live, and I think it was at the Haller Lake Methodist Church. But I remember that we had dinner beforehand with several people, and Erran had this fantastic sweater on that I think you said your mother made for you. Isn't that right?
That's right.
It was just a beautiful, kind of like an Irish fisherman's sweater with all these different stitches. It was just beautiful. So he can spin yarns as well as his mother can knit with yarn. And apparently Erran likes to tell stories derived from ancient myths and traditional folk tales, which frequently in those types of stories, the characters embody elements of our own personalities and teach us maybe how to overcome whatever difficulties we are dealing with. Erran has also been involved with the Forest Storytelling Festival as their sound guy. And it's just wonderful to know that is going to be coming back to life again this year. And that's a live event that's definitely worth going to in Port Angeles. So, Erran, we welcome you tonight and look forward to how you're going to spin a yarn for us.
Thank you, Anne. So, my big news is that the Forest Storytelling Festival, which I think happened for 25 consecutive years until we bit the dust in COVID, we're spitting the dust out of our mouths and we're standing back up and having the first post-COVID iteration of this Forest Storytelling Festival. We have three. It's going to be a little smaller than it has been in the past. We have three tellers lined up: Andy Offit Irwin, Megan Wells, and from Ireland, Colin Irwin. And it will be the first weekend in November. We're still working on exactly, is it going to be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but that first weekend in November. And I wanted to show you pictures of our proud new events hall where we'll be holding it. If I can share those just to give you a quick idea. Where did that go. Uh-oh. I better highlight it for myself first and then see if I can share it. Here we go. So this is down on the waterfront of Port Angeles, a multi-million-dollar events hall that is hosting all sorts of events, concerts, and they are working with us for storytelling. This is the auditorium.
Wow.
And there's also a lounge where we have been holding events. And so, yeah, we're hoping many of you will come
Yeah.
come
Great.
to that. And we will have, of course, the usual kind of festival things, concerts, performances by those featured tellers. We will also be having workshops from those tellers. We will have some story swaps and story slams for participants to be able to tell as well. So the other things that we're doing, we have a liars contest coming up in June, and it's our 10th or 11th liars contest, live event, also in that same hall that I just showed you. We have a sister organization here, which is a Story Slam group, and several of our tellers are telling at that Story Slam tonight, which is why I had to step in here, because we had folks lined up who would have been great tellers for you tonight, but they're all competing for for Story Slam prizes. We do have monthly live story swaps at our library. But the other thing you all should know about is the story work on Zoom. So the third Monday of every month, there's a Zoom session that we call Story Work, and it's a time to bring a story that you're working on, not a polished one, something in the works, and tell it, whether you are just telling it for the first time for the practice of saying it, whether you want some feedback to polish various aspects of it. It's a small group, typically 5 to 10 people. And let's see, you can find a link to it on our website or contact Ingrid Nixon, who usually hosts it, and get yourself lined up for a spot to tell on that, or you can just show up to listen. So I think that's pretty much everything that we've got going on here. And with that, I will launch into a little story for you. And I'm going to switch my camera so that I can have a better one and stand up to tell here. Okay, there we go. So this story comes from India. Long, long ago in India, there was a king who ruled his country with wisdom and heart, who loved his people and always considered what was best for the people and what was best for the country when he made his decisions. And so the people flourished, the land lived in peace, people were well taken care of, and all was well, except that the king did not have a child, did not have an heir, did not have a successor. And as he got older, his advisors became worried about what would happen. And his advisors were the wisest men. He chose men who were qualified, who were smart. And I hope he also chose some women amongst those advisors. And because the king listened to his advisors, they felt free to share their true concerns with him. And they came to the king and said, "Your Highness, how will we choose a successor for you when you're gone? It must be someone who who will have the kind of wisdom and the kind of love for the people that you do. And so the king thought, he took this into consideration, and he meditated on this question, how to choose a successor. He loved to work in his garden, and one day when he was out in the garden, tending the flowers, the fruit trees, an idea came to him. And he ran back into the palace. He called his advisors to him and said, I've got it. I know how we will choose my successor. Send word all across the kingdom for the young adults who want to be candidates for a successor to come to the palace in 2 weeks' time. The advisors were excited. Tell us, sire, what do you have in mind? How will you do this? I will not speak another word of it. Do what I say, said the king. And so the advisors hurried off to spread the word amongst the kingdom far and wide to all the corners of the kingdom that the young adults who wanted to be considered as successors to the king should come in 2 weeks' time to the palace. And so it was. In 2 weeks' time, a large gathering of young people appeared in front of the palace. And the king came out, and the people in the crowd cheered, and the king thanked them and quieted the crowd. He said, it's well known that I do not have a child, and we need to choose a worthy successor. And so, what I am going to do is invite each one of you who would like to be considered to come up in front of me, and I will give each and every one of you a single seed. And you will take this seed and you will plant it, and in 2 months' time, come back to the palace with your pot, with your plant, and whoever has grown the best plant, that person will be chosen as my successor. The advisors were astounded. What? Is our king already beginning to lose his mind? How is that a good way to choose a successor? But the king would say nothing. And the young people paraded in front of him, and to each one the king gave a seed. One of the young ones who came up was named Pingala, the golden one. Pingala was the child of a poor farmer. Pingala loved plants, loved growing, loved working in the soil, and was very excited to get his seed and hurried home with it. He dug some dirt, put it in a pot, planted the seed, watered it, placed it in the sun, and he waited. And after a week, he checked in on the plant, on the pot, but there was no sprout. He knew they sometimes take a little while to sprout. He gave it another week. After 2 weeks, there was no sprout. Pingala thought maybe it needs a different kind of soil. And he went down to the riverbank and he dug the rich bottomland soil from the river edge, and he repotted the plant in new soil, and he mixed in some compost, and he watered it, and he put it in the sun. Another week, no sprout. Another week, no sprout. And Pingala was so dejected. His plant would not grow whatsoever. And so he gave up and just went on about his life. Well, the 2 months' time passed, and the young people from all around the kingdom started to flood into the city to go to the palace to have the judging of the plants. People were walking with pots with big, beautiful plants of all sorts. Pingala stood and watched. And his father said, "You should go. You tried. You worked at it. Join them." Pingala said, but why? I have nothing. I have nothing to show. His father said, take your pot and just go. So Pingala picked up his empty pot and joined the crowds, and people were pointing and snickering and whispering about his empty pot. And they all made their way up to the palace. And there was much buzz and excitement in the air. When the king stepped out of the palace, saw and addressed the crowd, again they cheered. And again the king thanked them deeply from his heart and quieted them and said, I will now come and inspect all of the plants. And so he began walking amongst the crowd, up and back, down and through, looking at this plant with beautiful green leaves, that one with variegated leaves with red veins, this one with frilly, fancy leaves, these ones with big flowers. But he didn't seem particularly impressed by any of them. He came to Pingala and he said, you have an empty pot. What is your name? Pingala told him. The king said, why have you brought an empty pot? Oh, Pingala was so embarrassed. He just wanted the earth to open up and swallow him and take him away. All eyes were on him and his empty pot. And he told the story to the king of how he had planted and nothing came up, and he transplanted and he tried everything he could and could not make his seed grow. The king put his arm around Pingala's shoulders and said, come with me, young man. And he walked Pingala through the crowd and up to the podium. Pingala was beyond embarrassed. Now the crowd looked with curiosity. The king said, behold, I show you Pingala, my successor and your next king. The crowd caught their breath. They couldn't understand what was going on. The king said, every single seed that I gave out had been roasted. None of them would grow. Pingala was the only one who was honest. And therefore, I am choosing him as my successor. Oh, the crowd understood what was going on, and they, to their credit, they cheered Pingala. And he was taken into the palace and was trained in the arts of leading a country. And so when the time came that the old king came to his end and passed, Pingala declared a period of mourning, and then he took up the reins of the kingdom and ruled in kindness and wisdom for the rest of his days. The seed of truth.
Thank you so much, Erran. That was beautifully, beautifully told. Would that we always had such honest leaders.
And Erran wasn't sure about the source of that, but I just checked, and it was in his book, The Talking Drum by
Sudhamurti.
Sudhamurti, which is, if Shilpa's out there and paying attention, she might recognize it. It's an Indian author.
Yes. It's by Sudha Murthy. Yeah, hi, this is Shilpa here. Yes, this is by Sudha Murthy, and she has written many stories. And this is from The Magic Drum. Yeah, yes. And she has written many books for children. Wonderful stories, yeah.
Thank you. I hope I did it justice.
Oh,
Being
yes,
from a different
I really
culture.
enjoyed it. Yes. And thank you for sharing it and spreading it.
Well, thank you very much for that story. and for that information. And we really do look forward to that Forest Festival. What a great place. And it's, as you mentioned in the note, I put it in the chat, it's close to some really great tourist things. You can hop on the ferry and go over to Victoria. You can see a variety of things there. November might be a little bit late in the season to go up to Hurricane Ridge, but
Yeah.
anyway, thank you very much. And if you want to find out information about the story work, it's also in the Seattle Storytellers Guild newsletter.
Right.
So you can look there as well. That can be found if you go to our website and click on the newsletter archive. It's always the top one on the list is the most recent.
Right. And all of our things are on columnstorypeople.org.
Yes. Okay. Anne is going to be sharing with us in a moment. And I got to find her. Here we go. Add spotlight. Anne is a wonderful teller. And I've really enjoyed hearing her through the years. She's also served as our treasurer for quite a few years, but now she's our president.
Oh, no.
President of the Seattle Storytellers Guild for this year. And I always enjoy her variety of stories she tells. She's come up with some real good liar's tales, but I think the best tales she tells are always the ones that have childlike characters in them, whether they're animals or children. She has such a way of just becoming a child and expressing it so well in the way she talks. Now, she's going to give us several stories, shorter stories tonight, and I really look forward to sharing Anne with all of you, and go to it.
Thank you, Barry. I just wanted to ask if everybody could please make sure that their mics are turned off. We had some interference during Erran's story.
I would comment that I think that was an Erran's.
No, it wasn't. There is a person whose mic is not turned off, so that person needs to check the chat and take care of it. Thank you for welcoming me here tonight. I have 3 stories that I would like to tell. 2 of them are rather short. Oh, it looks like bunny ears. 2 of them are rather short, and one of them is a little bit longer. If we have time, I'd really like to do all 3. The first one that I want to tell is called The Watch. It came to me as El Reloj in Espanol. It's a traditional tale, but it was given to me by a fellow who is, as of a year ago, now deceased. And I used to take Spanish lessons from him. So I think of this story in Spanish, but I will, of course, tell it in English. Don't think I could do it in Spanish. Okay, so here we go. There was an elderly gentleman seated in a cafe reading his newspaper. He was totally absorbed in his newspaper, and the little bell over the door jingled, and a young fellow entered and stepped up to the counter to order his coffee. And as he was waiting for it, he turned and he noticed this older gentleman and instantly recognized him. He went over to where the man was sitting and said, "Professor Guillaume, it's me. Do you recognize me?" And the gentleman looked up and said, "No, am I supposed to know who you are?" And the young man said, Yes, don't you remember? I was in your class when I was in 5th grade, and you were just a wonderful, wonderful teacher. Don't you remember me?" And the older man said, I've taught many, many students. I'm sorry, I don't remember you." And the young man said, "Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you an incident from fifth grade, and you'll remember who I was. I know you'll remember me. It happened during the fifth grade year when my good friend, or I thought he was my good friend, but I lost him as a friend for what I did. My good friend brought a brand new watch to school. He was wearing it proudly on his wrist. He'd gotten it for his birthday, and I thought it was a beautiful watch, said the young man. I thought it was just the best looking watch, and I didn't have a watch. And I wanted that watch. And so, well, what happened? Said the old man. Well, I need you to know, said the young man, that what you did that day influenced me so greatly that I have become a teacher too. And the old man said, I influenced you? I influenced you to become a teacher? The young man said, yes. I had no choice in the matter after what you did on that day. A look of puzzlement came over the old man's face, and he said, go on, tell me what happened that day, for I don't remember this story. The young man went on. Well, he said, I coveted that watch. And when it came time to get ready for lunch, and we were all supposed to wash up at that sink in the classroom, my friend took off his watch to protect it and put it in his bag. And as we were all lining up to go to the sink to wash up for lunch, I took that watch out of his bag and put it in my own bag. After lunch, my friend went to his bag excitedly to put his watch back on. And that's when he discovered the watch wasn't there. He raised his hand and waved it so that you would answer him. Oh, yeah, said the old man. I do remember this episode. I do remember. But I don't remember you. Well, said the young man, let me tell you what happened. So my friend waved his hand and waved his hand, and you answered and you said, what is wrong? And my friend said, with tears coming down his face, my watch is gone. My beautiful watch is gone. Someone stole my watch. And you, Professor, you asked whoever in this class has taken that watch, you need to give it back. But nobody volunteered to give the watch back, and I didn't volunteer because I didn't want to give it back. I wanted it for myself. And when the day came to a close, the school day ended, and the dismissal bell was 5 minutes away from ringing, Professor, you said, after closing the classroom door, you all will stay after school, and here is what we're going to do. And he had us, the professor, had us arrange our chairs in a circle. And each one of us was to have our school bag on the floor behind our chairs. And then we were to sit in our chairs, facing each other in the circle. Circle of chairs, circle of backpacks. Professor, don't you remember me now? Aha, I do remember what happened. But go ahead, tell your story. Well, said the young man, you told us that we would not be dismissed until the watch was found. And you were going to search the backpack of each student, going round the circle. But, you said, you will not begin searching until the whole class had closed their eyes. So I did, said the old man. That was my instruction. And I did, said the professor, picking up the story. I did go around the circle. I did. And I found the watch, and I kept going around the circle until I had checked everybody's backpack. And then I told you all to open your eyes because I had found the stolen watch. And the young man said, but you never pointed me out. You never said, I have found the culprit. You have never said, I know who stole the watch. You saved my dignity that day. You did not humiliate me by telling me that I was the thief amongst all of my classmates. You never pointed me out and told me I was a thief. Said the professor. That is true. I did not point you out because I did not know it was you. You see, I had my eyes closed as well as I went around the circle. And so the moral of the story is, if you want to be a teacher, you must never humiliate your students. Humiliation turns all learners away from what must be learned. Whereas if you salvage their dignity, everybody will learn. That's the end. Thank you. I just love that story, especially since I used to be a teacher. My next story is a bit of, a good story for Women's Month, Women's History Month. This is called Pulling the Rope. In old Connecticut, it wasn't even officially a state yet. This was the late 1770s. There lived a farmer with his sons and his one daughter. His missus had passed away. The farmer's name was Amos Pierce. He lived on a small claim in the state, in northwest Connecticut. He had 4 sons and 1 daughter, and she was a handful. Her name was Lucy, and she only wanted to be with her brothers. Whatever they were doing, she was going to do. If it meant pitching hay, she would do it. If it meant digging fence pole holes, she would do the digging. She would erect the fence poles. If it meant shoeing the horses, well, she would lead the horse to the blacksmith, of course. But she knew how to ride like the wind. And she knew how to hunt game. And she would even wrestle with her brothers. She was no shrinking violet. She did not want to sit at home in frilly dresses and bake for the boys, or dust the house, or sew the clothes. No, no, no. She was not the sort of demure young lady her father wanted her to be. Now, a new farmer moved into the neighborhood, and his name was Samuel Forbes. Samuel took a shine to Lucy. He thought, wow, this is one neat gal. I think I am in love with her and I want to marry her. She is the kind of woman I need. And so Samuel went to talk to Amos Pierce, Lucy's dad. He said, Mr. Pierce, sir, I would really like to marry your daughter. I think she is splendid. No, said Amos Pierce before Samuel even had the words out of his mouth. No, you may not marry my daughter. She is not going to marry you. Samuel rode away, thinking that he would try again another day. Well, he met with Lucy surreptitiously, and oh, his heart was inflamed with love. Lucy said she would go talk to her dad. So Lucy went to talk to her dad, Amos, and she said, Dad, I really do want to marry Samuel Forbes. And her father said, nope. Already answered that question. That's not going to happen. And Lucy said, Father, I am going to marry Samuel Forbes. As long as you live in this house, you will not marry him, said Amos in reply. Okay, then, said Lucy. Thanks for making that so clear. Amos said, wait a minute. You mean you won't marry him? No, said Lucy. It means that I won't live in this house any longer. I'm moving out. And she went over to Samuel's house. She said, Samuel, let's get going. We'll go down to the town of Sharon. They were living in Canaan. We'll go down to the town of Sharon and we'll just get married. Right on, said Samuel, or words to that effect that were more appropriate in that era. And they went on down to Sharon and they got married. On the way home, in the buggy, Samuel was driving the horse, and Lucy said, you know, I don't think that you know that I'm not the kind of person who follows rules. Oh, said Samuel, well, I guess I have some inkling of that. And she said, no, you need to know clearly that I am not a rule follower. He said, but, you know, in every household, the husband makes the rules. And Lucy said, well, you can make whatever rules you want to, but don't expect me to follow them. Oh, said Samuel. Well, he was very flexible. We are going to have to figure out some sort of a system. I have a good idea how we could resolve this. When they got back to Samuel's farm, Samuel got out from the barn a goodly length of very thick rope. It was such a long rope that Holding on to one end of it, he was able to fling the rest of it up over the roof of the barn, such that the far end was hanging down on the opposite side of the barn. "Now," said Samuel to his bride, "I'm going to hold this end of the rope. You go around to the other end, or the other side of the barn, and you grab onto that end of the rope, and we'll both start to pull. I'll pull on my side, you pull on your side, and whoever pulls the rope over to their side of the barn, they make the rules. They run the household." "Oh, I like that idea," said Lucy. "I'm pretty strong because I've wrestled with my brothers, and I've put in a lot of fence posts." "Okay," said Samuel. "Get over there and grab onto your end of the rope." So Lucy did. Samuel grabbed onto his end of the rope, and he shouted out, "1, 2, 3, pull!" And they both started pulling. And they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled. Nobody gave an inch. "You still there?" Samuel shouted. "Yep, I'm still here," Lucy replied. "Well, let's keep pulling." "Okay." So they kept pulling. They pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and the sun went down. And they're still pulling. Samuel finally said, "You got to come over here. You got to see this. This is amazing. This is simply amazing. Come over and see this." Lucy went right over. She left the end of her rope. She went right over to Samuel. She said, "What? What do I have to see?" He said, "Look, here's my end of the rope." "Where's your end of the rope?" "Over on the other side," said Lucy. "Uh-huh. Well, I tell you what. We can stand here all night long, pulling and pulling and pulling. But I think the best thing is if you grab on here with me on this side, and we'll both pull this rope together." "Oh," said Lucy, "what a great idea." And so they both pulled the rope together on Samuel's side of the barn, and sure enough, the other end, Lucy's end of that rope, came flying over the top of the barn and landed in a puddle at their feet. Lucy said, "That was a great idea. We got the rope over the barn together." "That's the whole point," said Samuel. "We can do a whole lot together when neither of us can do it alone." And so it was that they had a marriage that lasted a long time because they figured out how to do things together. Thank you. Thank you. Barry, I don't know if you want to go ahead with your story or if I should tell my third story.
I
I don't
think
know
I
what
probably
kind of
should go
time we're
ahead.
for. Pardon?
I should probably go ahead and tell
You
mine.
probably should. Before you do, do you want me to say things about the guild, or do you want to say things about the guild?
You can go ahead and say some things.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we're working on as a guild is coming back to live storytelling, live in-person storytelling, and trying to get away from Zoom, although it's a wonderful, wonderful tool and we meet lots of people from all over. It's also not quite the way storytelling should be done. There are some people who just won't tell their stories on Zoom. It doesn't have the same feel. So while we move back to live storytelling, we have found a place in downtown Seattle. It is called Art Love Salon, which is, I want to say, it's not an art museum, it's an art gallery started by a man who just decided in the middle of his life that he was going to become an artist. He was going to become a painter, a young man, and he did. And he donated all this money to buy this space in a building that's now being renovated in downtown Seattle. It's a beautiful gallery. It's just a beautiful gallery where artists can show their works and sell their works without any commission being paid. If you're ever in downtown Seattle, it's at First and Union. It's free admission. Just a wonderful place, and they have events there too. I think on Wednesday evenings they have wine and little snacky type things. We are going to have our annual meeting there on June the 20th, where we will have Golden Circle, a Golden Circle nominee inaugurated to our honor society, if you will, and we will have tellers. That will be our first storytelling event at Art Love Salon. We'd love to have you come. It's easy to get there on light rail. There's also plenty of parking in the area. Also in April, one of our new members her name is Joanna Demarest. She is a real ball of fire. She has organized for us the Guild's participation in the Folklife Festival, which occurs at the end of May. But before we get to May, in April, she is running a series of lessons in how to tell stories. And she's doing that at Hugo House, which is in the Cap Hill area of Seattle. There is a fee for her workshop. I think it's a 5-day workshop. And yet, it is possible, if you are a member of a guild in the Northwest, it is possible to apply for scholarships from the guild to help defray expenses. So those are exciting events that we have coming up. Of course, Folklife Festival is all going to be live storytelling. And the third event that we have at Folklife Festival is a liar's contest with real honest to goodness trophies. Oh my goodness. So we hope you'll be in town and able to join us for that. All right, now I will turn it over to Barry.
Yeah, Folklife is really looking promising this year. We've got quite a few tellers that are telling little individual segments as well. And we've got a ghost stories program. We have that liars contest. And what's the third one? It's a story slam?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
But it's not the sort of thing where people come in and have 5 minutes. They've already got the tellers designated. But anyway, so lots happening. We still will have we still have our first Friday story swaps on Zoom on the first Friday of the month. They're real popular. We usually have about 20 people and great stories. You don't have to just come and offer to tell. And it's a lot of fun. We also are having Liars program on Zoom in the middle of May. We've got a very excellent featured teller from Colorado, Laura Deal, who's going to open our thing. And then we're going to have a number of people attempt to stretch your legs a little bit. And that'll be I think it's about 16th and 17th of May. On the 17th in the morning, we're having a workshop taught by Laura Deal. Information about all that will be on our website and is in our newsletter. But now I should get around to my story before you fall asleep there. And you'll notice in the background, I've got a little bit of scenery. I originally planned to tell you the story of the Iron Man and the whole rainforest. Unfortunately, I have not had time to really get the story together. So I'm still working on that one. I hope to tell it one of these days because it's a very fascinating story. The Iron Man John Halsdunk was probably the closest thing to Paul Bunyan, and he was a real person, and everything, the stories that are told about him are pretty much all true, but you're going to have to wait for that one. Instead, I'm going to tell you a story that I first told on August 14th, 1984, at the Claylock Campground, which is located on the Washington coast. There's one stretch of the highway that follows right along the coast. You got about 4 or 5 beaches, including the fabulous Ruby Beach, that you can visit along that little stretch of highway. The rest of the coastline is just rugged. Just visualize it if you can, because as I told this story, it was just filled with the atmosphere of the shoreline and the forest with the red cedar and the Douglas fir and the Sitka spruce, tall and strong and standing up against those salt winds, the waves crashing against the shore, the sea stacks and rocks along the way, catching the thunder of the waves coming in, the birds, gulls, all kinds of seabirds flying around. And it was kind of absorbing this thing and thinking about this story, and so I decided to tell it. And it's called The Iron Man and the Old Tide Woman. And I might comment that the books I got this thing referred to it as the man who sat on the tides. But in the Native American stories, it's an old tide woman. And in my early years of storytelling, I like to tell a lot of Raven stories. I kind of got away from that because I'm not a Native American, and I feel a little bit guilty about that. But for a while there, I was telling Raven stories, and I had a big thing in the background with Raven art that I put on it, and I'd go to schools and libraries and stuff and tell the stories. And so this story is probably one of the first I told. Told it several other times. I've actually told it quite a few times, and I hope I can remember to tell it to you tonight. But it begins like this. Long ago, when the earth was young, there were no tides. The ocean was flat, except occasionally there might be a ripple from the wind. But the shoreline was just a shoreline. There were no waves coming in, going out. The sound of the waves, the thunder of the rocks, it wasn't there. The sea was mostly smooth. And people were hungry. Raven was hungry. Raven, who likes to eat and mooch for food, that sort of thing. Raven was hungry, and there wasn't anything hardly to eat. Now, he knew there was food down there under the water. Where the kelp beds were, you'd see the otters out there swimming, and they would come up and float on their backs, and they would have clams and sea urchins and other things, and they would be eating away. But Raven, he couldn't swim. He couldn't go down into those kelp forests to get anything to eat. He was wondering if there was just a way we could move this water away from the shore, and I could get to those clams and the oysters and the mollusks that are down there and the urchins. There's food down there if I could just move the sea, but how can I do that? Well, he thought a little while, and then he thought, maybe I should ask my old former father-in-law, the Fogman, about it. Now, that's another story. Raven married the daughter of the Fogman, and it didn't work out very good. Knowing Raven is probably understandable. But anyway, so he decided to go find the Fogman, and he first of all started asking around, and he asked the birds, that were there. He asked the gulls, but the gulls were just swooping around like they didn't know where they were going, like lost souls in the sky. And then there was the cormorants sitting out there on the rocks, and they just sat there. They had no indication where to go. He saw the seabirds skippering on the shore, this way and that, but they'd had no direction for him. Finally, he decided just to head. Excuse my voice. head north because oftentimes that's where the fogs come from. And where the fogs come from, that's probably where the fogman is. And so he flew far to the north. And finally he saw off the shore a little island that seemed to be floating in the water, rocking back and forth. And there was wisp of fog there. And he looked down and there was a canoe. And it had an old grizzly man with a long beard sitting in the canoe. He was wearing a cedar bark robe and he was stroking with his paddle slowly along, and he knew it was the fogman. And as soon as the fogman saw him, his former son-in-law, he didn't want anything of him. And so he pulled out his hat, pulled it down, and the fog started pouring out from under it, trying to obscure him and hide him. But Raven flew down and snatched his hat off. Give me back my hat. The sun will burn my head. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you back the hat maybe if you tell me how I can move the water away from the shore. Well, I don't know. Give me my hat. I need to make fog. It's my job. It's what I do. No, you need to tell me who knows how to move the water away from the shore. Give me my hat, please. Come on, tell me. Well, you probably should ask that old tide woman. She lives far up there where the sun sets, along those rocky shores, and she can perhaps tell you. Well, said the Raven, that's great, but I think I'll keep your hat. These people around here need a sunny day. And Raven flew on north. And he searched for days as the sun would set and as the coastline gradually worked its way to the north. And he could not find anything. And he came to an area where there were big, huge rocks sticking up out of the water. And there was one in particular, the gulls were swirling around it. And it had an odd shape. And it was like a huge sea stack sticking out of the water. And as he looked at it, all of a sudden it yawned. And he realized it was an old woman, a giant old woman sitting in the water. Well, he flew up to the ear of this giant sitting in the water, and he says, "Are you the old woman who sits on the tides?" She didn't hear him. She was an old lady. He said a little bit louder, and she brushed him away like he was a mosquito or something. And Raven said, "Are you the old woman who sits on the tides?" Well, finally she heard him when Raven squawked his loudest. And she says, "Yes, that's my job. I'm the old woman and I sit on the tides." "Well, what are the tides?" said the Raven. "I don't know, but it's my job to sit here on the tides." Well, Raven, he started thinking, maybe I gotta get her to move somehow. And so he waited to some time when she wasn't looking. And he flew up in the air and he dived straight down with that sharp beak of his and poked her in the backside. And she and swatted at him and go away, go away. Well, he did this a few more times, and finally she stood up, shaking her fist at him. And at that point, the water started pouring into a hole underneath her, pouring down into the depths, the hole in the bottom of the sea. And pretty soon the water was pulling away from the shore, and the flounder and the sea urchins were left stranded on the sand, and the water line was receding far away. And Raven realized, well, maybe you should sit down on the tides again. And she swatted at him as she sat down again, and the water came back up. But you know, Raven's job is to upset people, to make mischief. And he decided this is going to be some fun. So he started sneaking up on her at times when she wasn't quite paying attention and poking her. And he got a hold of a sea urchin, you know, those spiny sea urchins with the very sharp quills. And he would poke her, and she'd jump up and chase him around a little bit, and then she'd sit down, and waters would go out, waters would come back in, and this went on. But finally, it got to the point where he had a hard time getting at her because she was just too smart and she was watching all the time. And then the raven got an idea. He put on the fogman's hat. And as the fog flowed out all around this great sea rock, hey, that was an interesting effect. Then she couldn't see him coming and he poked her. And she squawked and she stood up and then finally she sat down again. But, you know, she had gotten angry so many times that there's like great storms were caused where the raven was poking her, and the fog was so much better because, you know, there were times when the waves crashed against the shore, the trees were blown down. They say that's the first time the mountain goat tasted salt. Well, anyway, Raven started doing this on a regular basis, and finally one day he was getting ready to sneak up on her, and he was getting the hat ready to put on, and he watched, and she stood up, stretched her arms, looked around, the water flowed into the hole a little bit. Then she sat down again. It came back up. Raven thought this was interesting. A little bit later, she did the same thing again. In fact, it had gotten to be a habit of hers to twice a day stand up for a little while and let the water go into the hole, and then to sit down again and then watch the water come up. And while this was happening, on the shorelines, there would be clams and oysters and mussels and all sorts of things to eat. And the birds would find things to eat. Raven would find things to eat. And so he finally flew up to her and he says, "What are you doing, old woman?" She says, "Well, this is my job. I'm the woman who makes the tides go in and come out." And Raven just laughed. That's because his job was to make others upset. And he had succeeded. Well, I thank you for that silent applause, but I think now it's a good time for us to unmute and switch to gallery view and visit a little bit. Offer some thanks to these storytellers that have brought their stories and bring your remarks to them.
You're muted. You were all great. What can I say? All very, very different, but great, great in your own way.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'm glad I don't have to pick a winner. Impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible.
No, we're all just sitting around the campfire. Swapping tales, having fun.
Yeah.
Russell, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you from Eastern Canada?
Not originally, no. I grew up in Alberta and then moved to the West Coast when I started university, but always had a soft spot for French Canada. Some of my university studies were in French, and so I was in Montreal a week or two ago and kind of thought, well, maybe it's time to
Do a
bring out a
French.
French Canadian tale.
Great.
That's wonderful. I liked it very much.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a fun one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, very
and thank
good.
you to Anne and Barry for hosting and for organizing and
Oh,
bringing us virtually
you're
together
welcome.
here.
It was wonderful.
I'm glad we did it. I'm really glad we did it. There were so many conflicting events going on. I'm glad we had such a wonderful audience.
So, Russell,
Yeah.
I remember a
Wonderful
family
teller.
trip when I was a kid, and if I remember right, it was Cape Breton Island,
Oh yeah.
and farmhouses all over had wood-burning ovens in the yards, and
Right.
people would sell bread on the side of the road. I don't know if they still do, but that was so exciting to go and get fresh baked bread from a farmhouse oven.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, literally hot out of the oven, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they never tasted like skunk.
Yeah.
And pies,
Oh, that's
too.
a good
They
thing.
make pies.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I have a childhood memory. I think I was about 10, and my father and two brothers and I were camping somewhere near the Bay of Fundy. I'm not sure exactly where, but we were high up and the water was way down below. It makes me think of Barry's story with the tides going in and out. And a storm came up, and we were in a tent that my father had bought, and he was teaching us how to camp. And this tent had one single aluminum tent pole in the center of it, and it was kind of pyramidal in shape. And each of us, my father, my two brothers, and I, had an air mattress underneath our sleeping bags. And this storm just really blew in. I mean, it was tremendous wind and rain, and the tent pole snapped. And then the tent was just all around us. And my father got my older brother, 2 years older, from his sleeping bag and said, "Chaz, come on, we've got to tie the tent down." And Dad said to my younger brother and me, "You hold on to our air mattresses while we're gone." So Rob was on top of his air mattress in his sleeping bag holding another air mattress. I was doing the same with another air mattress. And the tents just, and I don't know where Dad and Chaz were, but all of a sudden, Rob couldn't hold on anymore. And this air mattress just went sailing right out over the Bay of Fundy. And we never saw it again. We just, there's some sort of unidentified flying object. Goodbye. Don't know where it landed, but whoever received it, must have thought, wow, the sky is raining air mattresses. That's my memory of Nova Scotia or Cape Breton. I don't know where we were, but I was pretty young, and I remember that.
Probably better that it rains air mattresses than real mattresses.
Yes.
Flattened by an air mattress, you're probably okay.
There is that, yeah.
Yeah, never follow a car with a mattress tied to the roof.
Oh, there's good advice. Is that from Trish's book of aphorisms and maxims?
Oh, yeah, things you need to know.
Yeah, things you need to know. I'll write that down.
Just in case.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It was good to see you all.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Oh, we'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
For organizing everything. Okay, see you at the next story swap.
See you next time.
Okay,
Good
bye.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you
very
all for
much.
coming.
Everybody,
Bye-bye.
take care all. Thank you.